However, right after the luncheon session, because I see most of you are already done with lunch, we'll just go right into the program. And so we'll, after his paper, we'll be inviting other public sector speakers. And so today we also have in our midst already Honorable Jim Karigianis, Member of Parliament. He's not coming up yet, so you can settle down and finish your lunch while the paper is being presented, so we won't continue with that. But he'll be joining us on the stage to join Honorable Elvis Afriyie Ankrah after his paper. So that's the structure. We'll just flow into it because we see we've taken some time at lunch. In our midst today also, we have with us Dr. Mrs. Marianne Chambers. Dr. Mrs. Marianne Chambers was a recipient in 2013, the Friend of Africa Award. She won that award in 2013, and it was highly competed, and she came on top. We really thank you for joining us today. Mrs. Marianne Chambers was a former federal Minister of Education in Canada, Ontario, Canada. So please welcome Dr. Mrs. Marianne Chambers. Right now, I'm just going to leave and hand over to Honorable Elvis Afriyie. You're welcome, sir.
Hello. Good afternoon to everybody. Let me first of all thank the organizers of this forum for this privilege and opportunity. Let me also acknowledge the dignitaries that are here, former Member of Parliament for this area, former Minister of Education for this province. When you go to a program and there are so many dignitaries, you are careful, just as the Consular of the Ghana High Commission said, that you don't miss anybody. And it happened in the program in Lagos. Somebody was the 13th speaker. And so everybody comes and mentions distinguished ladies and gentlemen, honorable minister of this, honorable minister of that, and it goes on and on and on, and it was becoming boring. So the 13th speaker said, I stand on all the other protocols, the previous protocols. So I am standing on all the other previous protocols to acknowledge and welcome all of you. And to thank you for this opportunity. Let me say that I believe in this statement that a journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step. And what we're seeing here is a seed. It takes me back to the pre-independence era, before independence in sub-Saharan Africa, where the Nkrumahs, Marcus Garveys, the Du Bois started meeting. In actual fact, the Pan-African movement started in Europe and America before it came down to Africa. And I believe that we are living in a time where we've overcome colonialism, but we have a bigger struggle ahead of us. The struggle to emancipate our continent from poverty, ignorance, and disease. And this movement, I am prophesying that in the next 5-10 years, will grow from Canada, move to other parts of Europe and the rest of America, and it will link up with other Africans in the diaspora and back home on the continent of Africa, so that the renaissance and resurgence that we need in Africa to transform our lives will happen. If you believe that, say amen. Okay, so now bring the offering. Pastor, the church is now a modern church, so this is the church that's cash and carry. I noticed that over the past few weeks or so, when I was communicating with the organizers, the topic has been changing, and I realized a little change when she was announcing my topic, talking about youth. My background is youth, so I'll try and see if I can incorporate youth issues. But my topic was private sector participation in Africa's economic development with case studies and opportunities in Africa. And even though I had all this nicely written down, you can have it after the program. I woke up at dawn and I went crazy. Sometimes it happens, you know. You wake up at dawn and I just felt that I should pour out my heart. So what I've got to tell you may not necessarily follow this. The ingredients are there, just a technical paper. You can take it home and go and look at it. But I want to speak to you as brethren and sisters from my heart. As I said, the new frontier, a new battle, a new challenge, as the king of Ashanti, Otumfuo Osei said during the 15th anniversary of his reign, that in the past we waged war against oppressors and marauding raiders from other ethnic groups and countries. But today the battle is against ignorance, disease, and poverty. And the same spirit of dedication, commitment, and valor with which we fought the oppressors has to be redirected to wage war politically, socially, and economically, and on all fronts to emancipate ourselves from these challenges. African intellectuals, academics, scientists, researchers, businessmen, and the entire middle class have a responsibility and a challenge to ensure that the knowledge, exposure, opportunities, and networks we have acquired and used to attract all over, wherever we've been, are used to transform our countries back home in close collaboration with our partners in the West. I sometimes say that if you're an African intellectual, you've been educated either back home or in the diaspora, you have a lot of knowledge, you're a professional, and you go back home and you see the level of poverty, disease, ignorance, give yourselves no rest. So I'm not here, I'm sure by the time I leave here, a lot of you will not be happy with me. But I want to challenge everybody. The situation we find ourselves in the continent is unacceptable, and therefore we can no longer sit in our comfort zones. We must use this forum to challenge ourselves, rededicate ourselves. We went to school, we went to Harvard, we went to Eton, we went to every other school with other people like us. They write exams, they pass, they fail like us. Sometimes we beat them in school. So we must not give ourselves rest. We must do whatever it takes to ensure that that knowledge is translated into practical action that will affect the lives of our people back home. Otherwise, the education we have is incomplete. Second point, every problem in Africa is an opportunity for the private sector. So when I was telling Pastor and a few others on CNN, they like showing, homeless people, Ebola, and all those things. It's true we have real problems, but there are homeless people in New York, there are homeless people everywhere. But the reality is that those things should challenge us. So when we see homeless people, that is an opportunity for urban renewal, affordable housing. I used to be in local government, and I used to fight with the civil servants. I said, when you see heaps of rubbish, waste, it should be an opportunity for recycling, waste to energy, renewable energy. When we see people engaged in manual agriculture, cutlasses and hoes, if you travel in the rural areas of our countries, you see old men, old women carrying firewood from the farm, walking barefoot. Some with children behind them. You see them carrying foodstuffs. In some parts of the country, you see somebody on a motorbike with a bag of corn in front of him, the wife and children behind, and the wife and children also carrying bags of corn. And they're using hoes and cutlasses. That is an opportunity for modern agriculture. If you go to the rural areas and you see people drinking brackish water, do you know brackish water? No, if you try and you drink that water once, you end up at the emergency ward. It's brown water. Sometimes they share the same water sources where cattle drink. That's where people drink. That is an opportunity for desalination. We have a sea surrounding us. We have rivers and water bodies surrounding us. So those of us who are technologically inclined, who have the networks and experiences, you say, no, I'm going to take the company down to Africa and they're going to convert seawater into potable drinking water so that my people will stop drinking brackish water. In Ghana, for instance, we had a new Ghana Investment Promotion Center. We had free zones. We've had systems to renew our land tenure system with support from our development partners. And the new thing is public-private partnerships, which is something that is receiving a lot of attention in a lot of African countries. As I said, for every problem, food security, commercial agriculture, agro-processing, fish farming, water, desalination plants, water distribution systems, management of water systems, energy. Africa has a high deficit of energy. If Africa is going to industrialize, we need energy. My president has made it his vision that by 2016 we'll have a minimum of 5,000 megawatts of energy in Ghana. So Ghana will become self-sufficient in energy and be able to export to the sub-region. That is the only way we can industrialize. Our big sisters, brothers in Nigeria, the energy company is called, who knows it? NEPA. NEP, what's the meaning of that? Never expect power any day. And in Ghana, in Ghana we have our own problems. We call it Doomsor. Doomsor means on and off. Doom is off, sor is on. So every hour, Doomsor, Doomsor, Doomsor. These are realities that we have to face. We shouldn't pretend. But these are also opportunities. So what I'm trying to say is that for every problem, there's an opportunity. There's a crying need for investment in these critical sectors. So we're talking about the energy sector. So we should need to begin to look at coal, for instance, biomass, solar, wind, small dams, road networks. Many of us, we hardly go home. And when we go home, we stay in Lagos or Accra or Dar es Salaam, or which other capitals do we have? Nairobi or Johannesburg. Why? Because the road to our villages and towns, and by the time you get there, you will be dancing. What kind of dances do we have? Is it Azonto or? But that is also an opportunity. We're looking at public-private partnerships in building roads and tolling them. The Lagos State Governor is doing a fantastic job. He's managed to build a road between the mainland and the island, right? And he's told them we can have similar ones. Because once the roads are good, people will pay for it. We're looking at a real network across the whole West African sub-region. Once we look at that as an opportunity, today is a challenge, but I want us to look at that as an opportunity. So those of you with the networks, with the businesses, with the education, with the contacts, this is how we have to look at the challenge and see it as an opportunity. Sanitation, I've talked about that. And I am embarrassed. We've just had lunch, but I am embarrassed that in some places, even places of convenience are not available. People do free range. But what am I lying? Is it true or false? True. It's true. I'm a practical person. We're looking at investment opportunities in Africa. And we're looking at challenges in Africa and how they can become opportunities. And I'm saying sanitation is a challenge. People do open defecation. Okay? Disposal of waste, solid or liquid waste, that can be turned into money. Heaps of garbage, that is some millions of dollars. Waste to energy. I've talked about transport. In DR Congo, for instance, you have to fly everywhere, almost everywhere, between towns, and those are huge opportunities. Air transport, water transport, rail transport, road transport. So those opportunities are there. Now, I'm supposed to look at case studies of private sector participation. And I just want to cite a few countries. In Lesotho, for example, we have the upgrading and refurbishment of the Queen Elizabeth II Hospital. It's a 425-bed facility at a cost of $100 million. In Benin, we have the expansion and upgrading of the Cotonou port, about $456 million. In Côte d'Ivoire, we have the Henry Conan Bédié Bridge, costing about 270 million euros. In Nigeria, Lagos Water Corporation is spending $1.9 billion for improved water systems. I hear the chuckle. You hope that all the money you use for the purpose. 10% for the project or 10%. It is a legitimate concern, but I'll come to that. In Ghana, we have the Sonum Asogli power plant. That is giving us a lot of power. And then what I'll call the cash cows, the financial sector in sub-Saharan Africa. We've been talking about SMEs the whole morning. A lot of SMEs, and I was very excited listening to what is happening in this province. Very creative, innovative ideas. Back home, people just require sometimes an equivalent of $100, $200, $500, $1,000, and that can transform their lives. I'm sure when you go back home and you give people $100, see how they line up streets and start singing your praises. So you can imagine if there's a system where you can come together, put money together, and form some kind of cooperative, okay, just for your community. And you look at the number of women who will be selling porridge, bread, granuts, cooking what? Amala, wache. Pastor likes wache. You don't need so much. And it's not very difficult to register some of these microfinance enterprises in our various countries. A few of you can come together, contribute every month. And it's business. I'm talking practical. I come from a local government background. I don't sit in office wearing tie and speaking good English. I go down to the people. So I'm telling you practical things that can transform the lives of our people. $100 here, $200 here, $500 here. And those women, they are magicians. Within 1 year, they will turn that $100, they tie it here, you know, right? Within 1 year, they will turn it $100 into $500, and it is that money they will use to look after our brothers, our sisters, our cousins, our nephews, go to school. That is how some of us were brought up. Everybody wants to own a house. It's normal. It's in Africa, in the West. But in Africa, more often than not, the reason why it's easier for people to own houses here is that mortgage, right? So 25, 30 years mortgage you pay over time. In Africa, and I think that is why sometimes there's corruption. So because if you work in the public sector or if you are at a certain level of the social structure, at a point, people want you to own a house. So you've worked all this time, you don't have a house. They insult us. If somebody insulted me at a funeral, I went to a funeral and 3 o'clock I had to leave in the village. They said, oh, wait. I thought they were being nice. So I waited 4 o'clock. I said, okay, I have to leave now. The one guy was drunk. He said, look at him. He's in a hurry to go. He hasn't got the house in the village. Me, I have a house. I can go home and sleep. So you know what I did? The following week, I went to buy land. This is real. But now, can you imagine if, what I'm trying to say is mortgage financing. It's something which is almost non-existent in our part of the world. We have a little bit of it here and there. But it's the whole virgin area. The whole virgin area that we can look at. Affordable housing coupled with mortgage financing. I'm treating your topic. Mortgage financing. Affordable housing with the financing. There are entities that have millions of dollars sitting down. We can link up with them. We have vast tracts of land. There are local companies. There's technology here. And in any case, we don't have money, and yet want to live in brick and mortar houses. And the people in the West who have money, they live in prefab. So we also need to help them to change. You have a lot of influence you don't know. The prefab house is as good as any other. $25,000, $30,000. It's a huge market. So I'm talking about urban renewal. Hello. Housing for the middle class, government workers, affordable housing. So if you see, every slum in Africa is an opportunity for urban renewal. It is possible, it can be done. It's been done elsewhere, it can be done. Education. I'm talking about opportunities for investment in Africa. Private universities. Reverend's friend has a private university. Started from nothing. Today, it's one of the leading private universities. And for us in Ghana, we have now, I think it's growing about 20% of the students in our universities come from Nigeria and other parts of the South region. There's a huge demand there. Education. And to be specific, medical schools. In Ghana, the medical school is able to take only about 30% of those who qualify. All the medical schools combined. Our fathers, I don't know what system, the systems differ, but let's say 2010, in the time of our fathers, if somebody got a grade CEE, he could go to medical school. Even DEE, he could go to medical school. Even DDD. Today you have people getting AAA and they are not able to go to medical school because of lack of facilities. So what about those who get BCC? And if you get a BCC, it doesn't mean because your father or the professors teaching in a medical school got BDEs or is DDEs. You understand me?
Yes, yes.
And yet because of lack of facilities and space, so somebody gets a BBE or something or BBC and cannot enter medical school. And parents will have to take them abroad. That's a huge opportunity. Huge opportunity. I can bet that anybody who establishes a private institution, tertiary institution to train medical students, and not just medical students, but nurses, what's the one? Physiotherapists, anesthetists, and all those ancillary, house support. You can't count your money. You will be reading money. Nobody said read the money. You will read the money. I'm talking practical, private sector opportunities in Africa. This is why you don't see it in any book. This is born out of 14 years of raw political fieldwork. Believe me, the opportunities are there. You will be tired. And then medical tourism. Many people go to Europe, Dubai to look for even general yearly checkup. It's a huge industry with great potential in our part of the world. There are facilities here, there are hospitals here. Every 2 years they dispose of their equipment. Some they say they are donating, some people divert it and all that. Let's stop those things. We shouldn't divert it. Let's redirect and let them come and build state-of-the-art medical facilities. The market is there, the demand is there. You'll be amazed at how much money people spend going to Dubai and other parts of the world just to see medical. As for oil and gas, and I don't know if you've observed that these days a lot of African countries are discovering oil, many more. Gabon recently, Gambia recently, and many others. And so we're learning lessons from what has happened in the past in other countries, and we're trying to put in place the right regulatory framework, more transparency, so that we don't make the mistakes that other countries have made. I haven't mentioned any country. Is everything all right? So that the oil will benefit the majority of the people and not just a few. Oil support services with emphasis on local content. ICT, there are many young men who are doing great things in the field of ICT. I see the field of ICT as the great leveler. The opportunities there it doesn't discriminate. Once you have the skills and you have the talent and you have the ideas. I was in a conference in Germany last year that brought together a lot of young people from Africa, Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Nigeria, Ghana, and many young men are doing great things in Africa. Great things, great innovations. For example, I don't know if you've heard of the M Pedigree product, where they use software to determine the genuineness of pharmaceutical products, especially malaria, anti-malaria drugs. There was a lot of challenge with fake drugs, and a Ghanaian actually developed some system whereby you can determine, you scratch, and then they send you an SMS. It's some way, and you can determine whether the drug is genuine or fake. There are so many software systems. There's a young guy here who was just telling us about the software that is developed. Who knows, he can become the Bill Gates of the next generation. And so ICT is a great leveler. There are tremendous opportunities out there. There are young people out there who are doing great things and they require support. And I believe even our children here, they're also doing very wild things. We should be able to link up with them. The opportunities are tremendous and endless. I know in the afternoon I'll be talking about Ghana. I don't know, unless that topic has changed. But back in Ghana, as I said, our president is looking at Ghana becoming the hub of energy generation in the sub-region. And at the heart of this strategy is what we call an integrated aluminium industry, because we have loads of bauxite and you need a lot of energy to be able to mine the bauxite. We also have the Tuabo gas plant, and so we want to use the gas to generate cheap energy so we can mine the bauxite. We have the Volta Aluminium Company, VACO, which was almost dying, which we want to revive. And so when we do that, we can produce the alumina, and then that creates opportunities for vehicle assembly, the aviation industry, and domestic and other appliances. So we're looking at using the energy, the aluminium, as a strategy to bring about economic and industrial resurgence. Now, why invest in Africa? We have a huge population, very huge population of over 1.1 billion. We are sitting on 11.7 million square miles, which makes us the second most populous continent. So it's not all bad news, because I'm talking about potential. We have a growing middle class, young people with over 50% of them 19 years of age and above. All these young people are very well educated, they are exposed. Because of ICT, they know so much. My children, my daughter is 15, my first one is 18, and sometimes when they ask you the question, you say, well, that's your mom, because you don't know. They read so much, they are so much exposed, and they ask critical questions. So they are not going to be docile and sit down for us to lead them, So you see, that generation itself, because of their knowledge and exposure, they serve as a check on governance. And you know that these days, these young people, if you don't handle them well, they'll start occupying. They'll come and occupy your office or your house. So that in itself serves as a bedrock for good governance. And it's an asset. I don't see it as a challenge, it's an asset. We are very conscious, those of us in leadership are very conscious that we have a young generation out there who are very critical, who are very intelligent, who are well exposed, and they understand what is going on, and you cannot take them for granted. And so that's a strategic resource for Africa. And I said we have a growing middle class, people with good taste, people like you, who have traveled around the world, who know what is going on, and therefore when you come back, you demand quality service. I know it happens, everybody, when you travel and go back, the first week or month, it's a problem. The people think we are crazy, you too think everybody is crazy. Because you don't understand why basic service, I mean, thank you, do the right thing, they won't do it. It's a challenge. But I can also say that there's a growing generation of waste. That's why you see a dichotomy between the private sector and the public sector, where you have a private sector that is delivering quality goods and services. The good thing is that the public sector is beginning to learn, but it takes a longer time for them to learn because they have been in the system, they've been doing it that same old way for a long time, so it will take a while. And fortunately, a lot of them are close to 60, so they'll retire or whatever, or nature will take care of them, so that the younger generation can come in with new ideas. We have stable and transitional democracies. Almost all African countries now have democratic systems of government. Even in countries that you say they do not have multi-party democracy, I don't want to get into the politics. They have systems and institutions in place. There's stability. You can talk about Uganda, Rwanda, where the investment climate is good. There's strong leadership, and therefore the investment climate is very conducive. Our continent is the fastest growing economy, or one of the fastest growing economies in the world. There's a huge demand. $93 billion is needed annually to fund infrastructure needs for the next 10 years, which is 15% of the country's GDP. I mean, when we come to these areas, you've done all your roads already, you've built all your nice buildings, you know, what again are you going to do? I mean, you've gone to space, you know. That's why we say we're a land of opportunity. The opportunities are there. Every untarred road is an opportunity. 100 kilometers, 200 kilometers, that's $300 million business. 1, 2 skyscrapers, $100 million. And because of globalization, the taste and appetites of Africans is like that they want to get everything that is in Europe. They want the same standards because they've lived here and they know it's possible. And so the next generation, they are not going to take anything less. They will not accept it. And so we don't have a choice than to develop. And the resources are sitting somewhere. All they want is people with ideas, with courage, that would network and show our partners in Europe that these are the opportunities. It's not just bad news, but the opportunities are there. Come and invest your money, and the returns on investment are tremendous. In other places, I know that in Europe you get about maximum 3%, if you're lucky, 5% return on investment. In Africa, if you get 50%, that's high life. It's not a bad idea. Maybe when we are done, we can do some Azonto, you know. I've talked about our geography, the size, rich in mineral resources, and critical point, if you don't believe in Africa, look at China. If the continent is so bad and there are no opportunities, why is China putting in so much money in Africa? Between 2003 to 2012, Chinese foreign direct investment in Africa rose from $500 million in 2003 to $15 billion in 2012. Wow. 15 billion US dollars. They know what is going on. That's why they are everywhere. And unfortunately, our friends in America, they didn't see it early. That's why when President Obama realized it a few months ago, he mobilized the entire leaders of Africa, said the Africa-US Summit. I hope it's not too late. But there are many, many opportunities. The Chinese people saw it and they're moving in there. And Europe and America, they are more like our traditional partners. And so the opportunities are there. Again, in China, bilateral trade up from 60 billion US dollars in 2003 to 210 billion dollars in 2013. So China's aid to Africa is growing, and we expect that it will continue to grow. I've talked about improved governance and accountability systems, and this has been done through collaboration with donor partners, but even locally, the various local business entities, using Ghana again as an example, Association of Ghana Industries, the Chambers of Commerce. We have a strong civil society, and there's strong civil society in Nigeria as well. I happen to have done a little bit of research on Nigeria. There's a strong civil society, strong media, and so all these serves as checks and balances on government. And of course, international institutions are also doing the institutional reforms and the structural changes that are required. The World Bank, EU, and other development partners, DFID, Danida, JICA, CEDA, in Canada. And so there is hope for Africa. We acknowledge our challenges. We shouldn't pretend. We have challenges. And we cannot continue blaming it on. I used to be a socialist, you know. I am still socialist in terms of, wanting equity, social equity. But sometimes the philosophy is carried too far. We can't continue to blame Europe and America for our problems. We've come of age, 50 years after independence. So we need partnership. We need to take responsibility for ourselves. We need to leverage the knowledge, networks, experience, and contacts that we've had. And we need to join hands with our partners in Europe and Americas to ensure that that continent, which people call the dark continent, there's a light, there's a beacon of light shining on that continent. And let me conclude on the evangelical note. Just as Elijah saw the cloud the size of a man's hand, and that cloud became a huge downpour of rain. The little light we are seeing on that continent, that light should tell us that there is hope for this continent. And the little light will turn into a big beacon and transform our continent. Let me conclude by quoting my president, President John Dramani Mahama, at the recent UN summit. He said, it's not sympathy we want, it's partnership. The ability to stand on our own feet. It's not handouts we're in search of, it's opportunities. We have already shown that with time and the right opportunity, Africa can make it. Africa indeed can arise again, but the responsibility is for you and I. Thank you very much.
I recall sending him a note to say, you would resign from the federal parliament and come to the council, to the local government, municipal council. I'm sure you'll be sharing some of the strategies with us this afternoon. Who knows what strategy is. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome with me Honorable Jim Jones.
Your Excellency, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, former colleague in the provincial legislature, and if I missed anybody, I apologize. Ladies and gentlemen, people usually want to go up. I wanted to do the other vice versa and come down. There were personal reasons, and I take about 30 seconds to share them with you. In life, unfortunately, my generation, people in their 50s, are known as Generation Sandwich Generation. You've got your parents above you, and you've got your children below you, and you're sandwiched in the middle. That's where I got caught. My father passed away in 2013. I've lost 2 uncles, one on my side, one on my wife's side, and the final stroke was losing my mother-in-law, and we had a burial 2 days before Christmas. I was the last plane to leave Canada when we had the ice storm in order to go to the funeral. And then my wife looked at me and said, it's our stage of life, we have to make changes. I said, sure, let's move to Ottawa. Kids are grown, everything else. And then unfortunately I had my mother, the sandwich generation, which is 85, suffering from vertigo. So I couldn't be away from home. I had to be home. Because my mom has got a cell phone after my dad passed away. And she knows that if she presses speed dial 1, it's her son that answers the phone. And you've probably seen me check the phone a couple of times because Mom suffering vertigo, she sees the room spinning, and we call them episodes. Unfortunately, my wife had to leave the campaign office and go and deal with my mom, as we right now, at this very moment, are having an episode. Having said that, I'm not trying to make you feel sorry for me, no, by all means. But there's opportunities that we must seize, be it in federal, provincial, or municipal government. And having started from a municipal base as the chairman of BIA, this is a business improvement area or a business area, and then trying to run federally, thank God I did not succeed during the Peterson years, and then being in federal politics for 25 years, you find that those opportunities exist municipally. Now where am I going at? In community such as yours, you always run to the federal politicians and say, we want to do this, and we want to do this, and we want to do this. And the federal politicians turn around and give you some help. But where it's lacking, it is on the ground. It's on the ground when something happens that you need to get a space quickly to meet. It's on the ground when something happens that you need to reach out. And the more accessible politicians are the municipal politicians. That's why I decided to return to municipal politics and work with communities in order to be able to assist them to move forward, to make a base, and from that base to launch into different things that they want to do. However, let's talk today about Africa. Some people say Africa is the dark continent. Some people say Africa is a forgotten continent. I would say Africa is the continent that needs to be explored. And that with a bang, I think we all get the message. Africa is a continent where when something happens, the people say, well, give you shit. Pardon my expression, I really want to apologize for this. Come on, die. We don't care. And that's what is happening today. Ebola has 3 countries under siege, and other countries beside looking. We had a conversation with the minister a few minutes ago. And we're all failing. The Western world is failing. And we're failing miserably because Canada has declared we're going to give them 30 million, something like that. Am I correct in that figure? That's what I heard a couple of days ago. What are you going to do with 30 million? $30 million will be taken up by flying the plane over there twice. Don't think it's $30 million in goods. It's $30 million, that's the envelope. Plane takes off, plane lands. To send a plane, a Hercules over there, is $500,000. Send it over twice, there was $1 million. Oh, well, let's not forget, someone's got to fly the plane. Someone's got to be on there. So at the end of the day, when you get over there, the products that you're going to send over there have very minuscule appreciation in order to help people. Same thing with other countries. The United States may say, we're going to put a couple of $1 million there. And then they will approach Canada and say, can we set up a base? Setting up the base there, people, folks, takes money. That's part of that envelope. That's the hidden facts that we don't realize. I remember when I was in the federal government, there was an earthquake in Pakistan, in West Africa. And we declared at that time that we were going to send over there $75 million. And we sent the DART team over there. Guess how much of that money went to pay for wages and getting the DART team over there for a month? 20 million. So when you hear these numbers, please be wary of what you're listening to. And that's why civil engagement is necessary. So when your politicians come to you and say, oh, we're doing this, say, what are the hidden costs? Oh, we're going to help you. How will you help us? You are a voting section of the population. And that voting section of the population has not yet spread its wings. You have not tried to seek federal or provincial or municipally. Some have dared. There was a young lady going around, I'm not sure if she's still in the room. Is she still in the room?
Yes.
She left.
She left.
Good for her. She was trying to become a trustee. And I said to her, what are you doing here? There's no votes here. Go back to your area. But when you try to spread your wings to run, then is what you find out what the real thing is. And I'm going to speak about my home country. I come from Greece. In 2007, Greece was burning. And the largest not Air Canada, the Canadair fleet for putting out flames after Canada, the largest fleet in the world is owned by Greece. 20 planes. And the planes were breaking down. And Greece was saying to the government of Canada, send us money. And I reached out to the government of Canada. I said, can you please send over there a couple of Canadair planes in order to help them? They didn't. Of course, knowing politics, I said, okay, let's figure out why they didn't do this. And I asked for freedom of information, and I got the straight goods. They asked for $5 million in order to send the planes. And Greece says, listen, we're burning here. Send us the planes. And yet, when down south in California, the fires were burning, Canada sent the planes over and didn't charge them a single penny. When we had Katrina, the army went down there and didn't charge a single penny. But because it was Greece and it was far away, they wanted money. Same thing is happening with other countries. Canada through CETA says we're going to help you. And when it turns out to help, half of that money goes to pay for getting people over there, or for sending ships over there, where they ask you to buy stuff from Canada that are probably not up to par. So, when politicians come to your door, grill them. When you go meet politicians, don't be scared. Grill them. Because you hold the power of voting. And we come to you once every 4 years. We use you and abuse you, and then we walk away. That shouldn't be the case. I encourage all of you to participate in politics. I encourage all of you to take a stand, and I encourage all of you, regardless of the politician, regardless of the party, to grill them. Gone are the days that you help me, and thank you very much after you're finished. So having said that, I encourage you all to participate and make sure that in the upcoming municipal elections, you all ask the politicians, the candidates, where they stand. We have a federal election coming up. And although there's a wave, I encourage you to make sure that you participate and you vote and you grill. Having said that, let's talk about missed opportunities in Africa. Time and time again, Canada has missed the opportunity to have its footprint on the African continent. We have forgotten what the continent is all about. It's until we sort of like prod them. Canada says, oh yeah, me too, I'm there. Nigeria, for example. I went to Nigeria on a trade mission, and nobody from the government was doing anything, so I figured, okay, I was the parliamentary chair of the Canada-Nigeria Parliamentary Friendship Association. I was going to lead the trade mission over there. The government pulled the plug on me at the very last minute. It was a mission that was supposed to bring money in to the International Department, the Foreign Affairs Department, in order for them to look after us. Money was paid, everything was done, and pulled the plug for investment because the government wanted to be the one to showcase. But there's opportunities that we cannot miss. There's opportunities that we must grab because there's money to be made. Lots of money to be made for Canadian companies in Nigeria. Small businesses, large businesses, even business of one-man band or a one-woman band, if you want to call it. And those businesses are, first of all, people that donate, that know the continent, and people that come from the continent. There's no better ambassadors than people that are from that part of the world, and they know that part of the world as well as you know this part of the world. So I say to you, exercise your options. Exercise what you can in order to reach out and build a small business there that cooperates with here, vice versa, or a large business. You might say, well, I want to get that train deal. I want to get the train deal that goes around the rim of Africa. And you chase that dream for the rest of your life, and it probably won't come. But if you say, you know what, I might want to rent a couple of buses and send them back there and let them run local transit, and hire two people in order to do that, you might make that opportunity. And on the other side, I want to talk to you about what I've seen in Ethiopia and Addis Ababa. Addis Ababa has the largest open-air market in East Africa. Huge, huge. And I was there with one of the NGOs, and they were given small loans to local people that wanted to do. And they gave these two girls that were survivors, both their parents had died from AIDS, $100. And they set up a little shack at the corner, and they were selling spices. The girls were able, from that, to look after families, their grandma and their grandpa, and a family with a couple of other younger ones. And not only that, but that was back in the early 2000s, 2001. And when I visited back again a few years later, they all one had a family of their own. So for $100, they had set up a market, then they branched out and out and out. So the opportunities are there. The opportunities are there, especially in the continent of Africa, because it is probably one of the last frontiers for business people, is one of the last frontiers for NGOs, and it's the last frontier for us in North America to engage. We can talk about doing business in North America. I mean, the United States is our second largest trading partner, and after that comes China. And Chinese are in a big way in Africa, because they're not stupid, they've seen the light. They've seen the light, they're in there, and when they come in, and we give them projects, as they were given the project of building the Port of Lagos, it wasn't the Africans that were building the Port of Lagos. It was the Chinese that brought the Chinese over to build the Port of Lagos. And they had their own little city right there. And when I was in Lagos and in Abuja, and they were going to take me out to dinner and lunch, I was not taken out to local Nigerian restaurants. I was taken out to Chinese restaurants. And I said, hey, I can have that in Toronto, I can have that in Scarborough. Oh no, but there's delicacies. So, although the Chinese are there, trust you me, they're looking after the Chinese. And yet we in North America, oh, you don't want to do business. Well, we're stupid and blind. Because the business opportunities exist. Unfortunately, our governments, successive governments, I don't care if they're liberal, conservative, well, there's never been an NDP federally, but they don't think about Africa as a priority. We run in Ukraine because there's 1.2 billion Ukrainians in Canada, and we want to get their votes, and we're going to stand up to the bear. Whoa, how much money are you spending in Ukraine? When was the last time that we sent a contingency of political observers to an election in Africa? And yet we've spent millions of dollars sending political observers in the Ukraine. Just a couple of years ago in the DRC, when things were happening, we had how many observers, would you think, in the elections? Anybody please guess? Sorry? 6. You're off by 1. Give them a cigar. 6 international observers from Canada in the DRC, in one of the hottest, contested, and the most dangerous elections. Huge. And what is happening there? Huge. And the community here, although small, they were screaming and yelling. Thousands of emails went into the Prime Minister's office, ignored. So therefore, you want things done? You got to grab the bull by the horn and make things happen. And as we are in the midst of 2 more elections, participate and also get involved. You cannot get involved because you cannot run municipally because the deadline to run has gone past, but there's candidates out there that are running. And approach them. And not only approach them and hold them accountable, but approach them and hold them responsible and accountable for what they're saying that they're going to do. Because the African community in Canada is huge. The diasporas are huge. The only difference is that they use the divide and conquer that the British used. We'll say one thing to the Caribbean African community, we'll say another thing to the Western African community, and another thing to the Eastern African community. And when you listen to the politicians, from community to community to community, although it's the same message, vote for us, underlying they're saying, hey sucker, thank you very much. So I say to you that, hey, whatever has passé, no longer can they take, or should we, politicians, take a free rein and a free check. And no longer can we say we're giving you 30 million. Because in that 30 million, just to fly the jet over, 15 are gone. No longer should we say we're going to match dollar for dollar, and then they find their favorite projects in order to sponsor. Please, hold us accountable. Because when I remember that young lady in Addis Ababa in the market, $100. I've lost contact and trace what she's done now, but I'm sure she's a mother, she's got children of her own. There was an opportunity there. It was $100. $100, folks, you blow by going to dinner. You go out for dinner, you have a couple of glasses of wine, or a couple of shots, and you order steak, you're already in the $150. And yet, for 2/3 of that, $100, a couple of families were saved. It doesn't take much to help Africa. So open your pockets and give, but give wisely. And it doesn't take much for governments to help Africa. Because when you help and they become a little bit affluent, guess what? You got priority. You got dibs. We looked after you, we want to do business with you. I happened to be in Libya right after Gaddafi, and I'm going to close with this. The Libyans were having an election in 2012. And I happened to be there after Gaddafi fell, and I was the only Canadian team on the ground as an international observers. And this was not because the Canadian government sent us. This was because the Libyan community in Canada raised money in order to send us. Another missed opportunity by the Canadian government. And after we were there, people were coming up and saying, where are you from? We're from Canada. Thank you for helping us. Great for being there for us. And then when Libya was ready to do business and open up, the West failed. We were not there for them, to work with them, as we did in Cambodia, as we did in Albania, in order to help the militants put their arms away and find work for them. Can you imagine the millions of dollars that we would have made in that country? The millions of dollars that we would have made in every missed opportunity? Having said that, I thank you for having me. I might leave early because I need to get back in the knocking trail. And for those of you that are not involved, get involved. Because if you get involved with somebody and you get to know him or her personally and close, then you can pull strings once they get elected. For those of you that are aspiring to run, do make that commitment and step forward. 2015 election is not far. I don't care what party you run for. Because when you're there, nobody can tell you otherwise. When you got there, you got the fire in the belly, and the guts in the belly, you can stand up. And if you stand up, you'll be counted. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Jim. Can I join us? Fine, your belly. Okay, so we'll get a little more of that in the afternoon as we continue the discourse on why Africa has become an investment haven.
I mean, there's really so much to share, but I'll just make a few comments and rather wait for question time so that if anybody has specific questions, because there's so much that one can talk about. But let me just deal with issues about Ebola and Boko Haram, corruption, and bureaucracy, systemic failure. Because as I'm speaking, I'm sure, oh, well, you know, but in the face of all this, we have Ebola. We don't even want to go back. We have Boko Haram. We have corruption. We have bureaucracy. Those are real issues. And I don't want us to live here pretending that we're glossing over issues, that we're not conscious of the realities on the ground. So first of all, with Ebola, yes, we do have a big challenge with Ebola. It's endemic in 3 countries, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Guinea. Liberia is the most affected country because they did not have a very good health system. You know, they've been recovering from war, civil war, and therefore they are the ones that are suffering the most. Guinea and Sierra Leone. Sierra Leone decided to do a lockdown, and for that period, they did an aggressive campaign, house-to-house campaign, because there were some beliefs and perceptions in those communities, and so people were not taking the precautions that they had to take. And the president of Ghana is the chairman of ECOWAS, so he decided that he would go into these countries himself, leading forward. So he flew to Liberia, Guinea, Sierra Leone, and he went and looked at the facilities and all that, and he came back and he's alive and he's not infected, he's healthy. And just to show, because there's been a flight ban, many countries are no longer flying to those countries, but the point is that you must have direct contact with the fluids of somebody who is infected before you can be infected. And as long as people are observe all the protocols, there are still countries, people go there and come. We just had some troops coming back from the United Nations. Of course, they were quarantined, and after the quarantine period, they are all okay, there's no problem. So the challenge is to contain and deal with those that are already there. That is in Liberia, Sierra Leone. They've just built a new hospital, and we believe that they're going to contain them. Ghana has become the hub for the sub-region, so the UN is setting up a center, Ebola response center, and the UN is bringing about 200 personnel and other logistics so that we could take care of them. So we are confident that in the next 6 months or so, the situation will be under control. It's not a lost case. It's a big challenge, no doubt about it. And I think that on this particular case, Nigeria has to be commended, because when the first case broke out in Nigeria, the Nigerian government was very proactive. People were identified, they were quarantined, and there was massive public education. For instance, I know that there were over 250,000 volunteers that were raised to do public education. They were going door to door with leaflets, and I think that it was a mass mobilization effort, and Nigeria has to be commended. So with that kind of approach, we believe that that problem will be solved, and of course with support from our Western partners. Incidentally, as he said, when it started, it was more like, well, this is an African problem, we are concerned, but we are not concerned, And then, unfortunately, it hit US, and and you can see the fear and panic, you know, and the reactions. So now everybody, and I remember our president as chairman of the ECOWAS kept on saying, this is not an African problem. Even at the UN, days before it broke out in the US, he said, this is not an African problem, this is a global problem. They won't listen, or they heard it, but you know. So I'm not happy that Ebola should be anywhere. I'm just saying that somehow this has created a renewed sense of urgency globally, you know, so everybody is going to see that it has no borders, and therefore with that concerted effort and response, we'll be able to deal with it. Corruption, it's a major issue in Africa and in governance, but as I said, there's a growing civil society, a growing media in Ghana, and I'm sure in Nigeria, newspapers, radio stations. I mean, you wake up in the morning, there are morning shows, they will question you, they will ask questions, they will deal with you, you know, consistently. And I believe that those of you in the diaspora also need to have a strong voice. Maybe a certain aspect of Friends of Africa must have a strong advocacy voice. Of course, sometimes there's the danger of being labeled political, but insofar as you are not partisan and you're dealing with issues, it's important, because civil society engagement and awareness is like shining light in darkness. When light shines, darkness must run away. So it's important that those of us in the diaspora, or those of you in the diaspora, have a strong civil society voice. And this is thanks to the internet. You don't need to be in locus, in a physical place, wherever your country is. Your voice can reach there. Consistent engagement, consistent, you know, when governments realize that they are being criticized and they know that people are watching, it tends to serve as a barrier. In our country, we've had situations where we've had to deal with people in our own government over issues of corruption. It comes with all kinds of consequences to some of us, but it has to be done. You know, systems, bureaucracy, again, is a two-way thing. People are just steeped in doing things in their own ways. I mean, this is how they've been doing it all the time. Like I said, fortunately, that generation, most of them are close to 60. So they are retiring, and you know, they retire and they go home, or God retires them somehow, you know. So that is one way of doing it. But again, in all our engagements with the donor community, there's always a component of our programs that have to do with institutional renewal. So we realize that even within the civil service, there's a lot of institutional renewal, capacity building, so that people, it's a mindset thing, you know, people must change the way they do things. I shared an experience where I wanted to do the renovation of a stadium, and I needed technical reports from an agency that was not directly under me. It took 1 year, you know, and it took another 6 months for me to get a financial report. So those challenges are there, but with consistent engagement and of course discipline, with which we are all working on back home, and conscious of the fact that we have a very proactive media and civil society, together with the training, the capacity building programs that we're engaged in. And again, you here, you are a great resource. You have great influence over your family, your peers, your colleagues, you know. As you come back home, or even from here, you make input into policy discussions and decisions, and you know, you come home and you engage people. It also rubs off positively on them. But the best way is to come and establish your small business, whether it's one person, 2 people, 5 people, and you show by example that this is how things are done in the modern world. And people learn from it. We have very, very classic case studies of people who have built businesses locally, and they've institutionalized and developed a culture of excellence. And people tend to learn from the culture of excellence. The UT banks and all that, they are Ghanaian companies built in Ghana, but the culture of excellence with which they work, it becomes an inspiration for other people. Case studies of Ghana, I don't know which specific area you want me to look at, but in terms of industry.
Well, I mean, if you have exactly, let's take a talk about that. Or we can also take the questions and then we have.
I think so,
Yeah.
because there's
Questions, yeah.
so much, I mean, yeah, missed something. Okay.
Thank you very much.